Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Commercial Real Estate Library podcast. You know me, Dama Tamanawala, Garrett McGillivray, my co-host as always. And joining us today is the CEO and a partner at Greybrook Realty Partners, Peter Politis. Peter, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. How you doing?
Good. Fantastic. For those who might not know what Greybrook does, can you share a little bit about the company and kind of the size of your organization?
Yeah, I mean, Greybrook's a private equity firm, and we focus on investing in really development-based real estate opportunities. So what that really means is, we're buying typically land, and we're partnering with various development firms to build condos, high-rise, low-rise, townhouses, single-family homes, purpose-built rental. We're essentially creating value and developing. We're not haven't been an organization to kind of buy core income producing stuff to clip a coupon or make a spread off of debt. We're typically more value creation based shop. The business has been around for almost 17, 18 years now. Was one of the founders and started the business. Today we have just about 19 or 20 billion under development in terms of value of the completion of our real estate. Most of it's in the GTA across southern Ontario, but we have about 4 billion in the U.S. from South Florida to Denver, Atlanta, Nashville, other places, and in Texas and Houston as well. And we have a little bit of a value add business where we kind of buy older apartment buildings, we renovate them, increase the rents, and typically sell them onto a stabilized partner where we have a couple, 2,500 units there, mostly in Montreal, Ottawa, Quebec City, with our partner called Marlin Spring on that.
Right. Nice.
And so in a lot of these cases, you're saying that do you take projects through the rezoning process, or are you strictly the equity capital that comes into play?
Yeah, I mean, our investment thesis is really hands-on. I know like everyone says that, and everyone says they're hands-on and their execution and they're on top of it, but I can't stress that like we have womb to tomb development experience in-house that can take everything from acquisition, zoning, planning, sales, marketing, financing through to construction. So when we buy something, we're never like, not only are we not passive equity capital or like board level stuff, like we're in there day in and day out looking at everything from zoning, making submissions, helping execute these projects, sales, marketing, unit mix, names, like financing, like womb to tomb. We talk to trades during the tendering process. Like we do the full development work in partnership with our development partner. It's simply because over the years we've accumulated a lot of knowledge in doing this stuff. We have 15 or 20 of the largest development organizations that are our partners, and over the last 20 years we've done over 90 developments now, right? So I didn't know a lot 20 years ago, right, and I know a heck of a lot more today with a lot more to learn for sure. But I think that our ability to kind of take the best things we've learned from all of our best in class partners and constantly be at the forefront of like thinking about things differently. We really get involved in the execution. Like it's everyone says it, and I just haven't seen a lot of people actually do it, at least not the level that we think you need to do it to be long-term successful in this business.
Right. So, by the way, I love that womb to tomb. I actually
that was a great idiom.
So, like I know that Greybrook is in so many major deals across Toronto. Can you talk about how the process typically works? Is it that a developer finds it and brings you in? Is it that several developers are calling you at a time about this? How does that really work?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things. We look at stuff with our partners organically have their own deal flow. They're looking at stuff on market, off market. They're bidding on stuff, and we look at stuff with our partners. I would say 80% of what we buy is off market. It's just happened to have been that way through relationships, and sometimes it's our developers and their relationships. And I would say at least half the time it's us originating an opportunity and bringing it to one of our partners, whether it's brokers or landowners or something. I mean, many moons ago, what some of the people who are selling or involved in properties thought, I may as well go to the group that puts up most of the money, because if they're on board, it's a lot easier to get their development partners on board. to buy something. So we have a whole bunch of different areas that we're looking at, and we have had a situation where we've had more than one partner looking at the same deal, and we've managed to conduct ourselves, very appropriately and saying, we're looking at it with somebody else, can't talk to you about it. If you get it and we don't get it, happy to talk to you about it. But we stay pretty conflict free. I mean, we couldn't work with as many people as we have and do, and be involved with such intimate information if we didn't, govern ourselves appropriately, because that's the easiest way to like end that partnership, right? To ever share information that you should share with somebody else.
Right. And where does that sorry, Karen, okay, a quick question. Where does that capital come from? Are you guys raising money from, public guys, big institutions, wealthy families? How does it work?
Yeah, I mean, the truth is that when we started, there was basically, we took capital from anyone that would listen to us. We didn't have a network of people. It was like friends, family, kitchen counters, and living room couches.
Yeah.
But over the years, we've built, we have over 7,000 active high net worth investors in 32 countries. We report in multiple different languages, from Hebrew and Cantonese and Mandarin and other things. And really, it started off with just individual investors, and then it's high net worth investors, and then it becomes family offices, and we have institutions. We have well-known international billionaires investing in a deal with, a family doctor, or one of the trades, and they're all investing on the same terms and conditions, and that includes our institutions. We manage a few $100 million of just institutional equity that is, development-based stuff. So we kind of joke around that everyone gets the same deal that my mom gets when she gets involved in a deal.
Right.
Whether you're writing a $10 million check or a $50,000 check. And if the best deal isn't good enough for you, well, then that's okay too, right? Because that's really the way that we do it.
So on that basis, how did you get started? Like, you obviously had a few people listen to you right off the bat and invest some money, but like, what was your first project? How did you come up with this idea of creating Greybrook? And
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I wish I could tell you it was just like grand orchestrated plan. And if you come to my office, I can show you the blueprint of how we started and got exactly from here to there. Like, that would be a great story. But it was really a function of like me, my two partners, Elias Van Vakis and Sasha Chuchus. Elias founded a company called TLC Vision. They did laser eye surgery. They did Tiger Woods' eyes and Vince Carter's eyes and all those things. And he made some investments in private equity, like a bunch of different tech and transportation logistics, and one of them was a real estate deal. And then I started working for him pretty much right out of school. I wasn't a partner. I didn't have any equity. I had an unflattering salary that there's no need to brag about today. But I got to get hooked up with good people. And Sasha joined shortly after there, and we were both just employees at the time. Didn't have any equity. Didn't have I don't remember what my title was, but whatever the lowest possible denominator in a two-person shop is. So and Elias had made an investment in a real estate development, and we said, this is really cool. We should do more of this stuff. Not exactly how you did it, but in a different way. And Elias, who was still running TLC and another coming time, he was like, "That's great, go for it." I'm like, "I'm sorry, I don't understand. We can go. I've told you everything I know about real estate development. I don't know anything." And that was really how it started. And the first two projects that Elias invested in were a condo in Yorkville and another one at Mount Pleasant and Eglinton. And then Elias was like, "Okay, great. Now, if you want to do it more, like, go find other people to do it with." And it was really just Sasha and I. We had one development partner, and we did one project, and we did another one in Liberty Village, and we said we should do more of these. And we did something in Victoria Park in Eglinton. That was a super small deal where I remember, like, when we closed it, we're like so excited, and it was like 60 townhouses and $2 million. And then from there it grew. We brought on other partners like the Goldman family and Stafford Homes, and then Tribute, and then Citizen, and then Fernbrook, and Diamond Corp, and then Empire, and then Castle Point, and Sorbara, and Treasure Hill, and all these big developers, and Marlin Spring, and all these guys. And we just grew organic. We never had a 5-year plan. Like, every year we just like put our heads down, worked until we were exhausted, did as much as we thought we could do without taking on undue risk. And then 5 investors turned into 15, and 15 turned into 50, and then 2 employees turned into 5. And then I remember when we had like 10 employees, and I was literally involved in like making our brochures, and I had this brochure. We keep it today, and there was like, I don't know, like 8 projects on there, and I'm like, we've reached the pinnacle. There's nowhere to go from here. We're at the top of the. We've done everything. Now what else is there to do? Right? And it's funny over the years because you look back and you're like, oh my goodness, like that was kind of funny. But we really just grew, and today we have like 70 professionals. We have offices here. We're opening up an office in Miami shortly. We had a presence in Vancouver and Israel. We look at the map of where we have projects and who we've worked with, and it's been a privilege. And it's been, we've never forgotten that these people trust us with their money, right? And that's something that's really been, we take it very personally. Like, I don't know how to explain it other than everyone's investment is very important. It's not just an investment, it's a personal transaction almost. And that's how we conduct ourselves, really.
And what sort of, that's amazing to think, like, you talk so quickly and it even makes the journey sound faster from going from, less than 10 employees to now, what is it, 17 billion in value?
Yeah, it was 20. Yeah.
I mean, that's just extraordinary, right? Can you talk a little bit about what differentiated you guys at the beginning? Because you seem to be on a trajectory the whole time, but in the early days, how did you find success building those relationships and partnerships? And
yeah, I mean, I think we were just good, honest people who did what we said we were going to do, didn't try to take on too much, and didn't purport at any point, even today, let alone back then, to be something or someone that we're not. We have our strengths and we have our weaknesses, and we have, the way that we see business. I think we got a little bit lucky in getting introduced to the right people. And sometimes when we didn't get a good vibe from somebody, we just, for no specific reason, just didn't get engaged with them. And we've managed to find ourselves partnering with some of the best, not just execution and balance sheets and size, but generally good people. Like, we've become very close. All the principals and these developers, they've become friends. They become our relationships. They're very important to us. I think that's just been how we are as people. So I think, and I talk a lot about this with our staff and with the different departments that we have, but we're here to just do what we say we're going to do. And it doesn't mean that we always, get the exact result that we want at the exact point in time that we want. But if you're doing the right thing and you're making the right decisions and you're not putting anyone, you're putting the investors and our partners ahead of anything that's ever of our interest. I feel like that's how to be long-term successful, right? And that's what we've been trying to do. We try to keep that personality. I mean, there's people in our business, right? Like, you guys see it. You're interacting and you're dealing with principals. It's not that we don't have institutions and we don't have public REITs that are our partners, but at the end of the day, they're all people behind all this stuff. And if you treat them appropriately and you're honest with them and you understand what their points of tension can be, you can find a long-term successful partnership.
Interesting.
Sounds like really good organic growth with which is obviously very hard because a lot of people hit roadblocks or potentially get too greedy or potentially have things happen where they take on too much. And
I was speaking to a group of university students, of MBA students from actually the Tel Aviv University, and some guys are like, well, if you lose this opportunity, you don't make that dollar, like, how is that good business? So I mean, I'm not in it for the last dollar no matter what. It's just not my personality and not how we think. But when I try to, if I really want that person to see it my way and I really want to put it in their terms, I'm like, how about this? How about being long-term greedy instead of short-term greedy? Because there's way more money to be made in long-term greedy than short-term greedy. Right. If I had to put it in a way for you to understand why it's worth giving up a dollar, and that is why. Because if you want to look at it that way, then go be long-term greedy and go be in this business for 15, 20, 50 years and go be successful for 36 months and tell me who's going to be ahead. Right?
Yeah. I love it. Clip it. If we had a moderator, this one you tell the moderator, hey, clip that section. We'll put that in the promo. Can you tell us, Peter, about the, because we'll get into what you're doing now in a second, but can you tell us about maybe a story or a moment when you thought, wow, we've just graduated, we've just hit into the stratosphere, the next level, maybe a little bit forward from when you had the brochure?
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because I don't actually ever think I've had that we've arrived moment. It was funny. I used to joke with Sasha a lot. And I'm like, I used to wear a really fancy suit 15 years ago or 20 years ago. And that used to be a meaningful percentage of your net worth, that fancy suit, right? So you always thought to yourself, you always like thought of yourself as like, I'm going to be wearing this nice suit. And by the way, I joke with him because he wears a suit all the time. And I wore a suit to the office one day for the first time in like 15 years. And someone's like, did somebody pass? Something bad happen? And I'm like, no, like literally like 3 people are like, I'm sorry. Do you need a hug? I'm like, I'm okay. I'm fine. Nobody passed away. But I just think that like, it's just been so natural to like, we haven't had one day where we didn't have this investor and then institutional investor gave us $100 million and it changed our lives. Like we didn't have that. Like it was literally, I wish it was like this like thing where it was like hard, easy, and then everything's easy. It's almost like we've always just built like one step at a time, one brick at a time, one project at a time. And, I think that we're probably more guilty. And I talk about this a lot with our staff. We're so busy that we don't celebrate our accomplishments enough. Like it's like, oh, we got, and then it's like, you're already on to the next. Right. And I think it's something that you just need to, for everyone to like sit there and celebrate a little bit. So I think we've been a bit guilty of not doing that, but I don't have this like, and now it's all different moment really. I'm at my desk till 2 a.m, 15 or 20 years later still. Is that there's the same moment. So.
Yeah.
So I guess just to switch gears a bit and focus on some of the things that you're working on now. Obviously you're based out of the GTA, but why have you focused a lot of your strategy on areas such as like South Florida in the United States?
Yeah, so it's all kind of like the same story of the business. When we started in the business, we did condos. We bought a piece of condo, we developed the condo. We thought, well, what if the condo market slows down? We should get involved in the single family or ground related housing. Okay, let's do some of that. And then we said, well, you don't always have to build the stuff. You can buy land and just approve it and sell it. And then, well, there's a whole GTA, and then there's the Greater Golden Horseshoe area, and like as you look for like ways to like expand and diversify your risk and your exposure, and we try to build portfolios for our investors that are like super diversified across product type and risk. The next thing to do was look down south. I was born in Toronto. I lived here till grade 3. I was born in Markham, and then I moved down to Florida, and I stayed there through high school. So Florida was like really where I grew up. I knew the market. Now, that's not why we went down there. We went down there originally because we were condo guys. What did we start with? And there's only a few markets in the U.S. where they have condos. It's like New York, South Florida, San Francisco, and like the rest is like pretty scattered in terms of like real condo volume. Mm-hmm. And South Florida was the only place that sells condos like they do up here in Toronto, which means they pre-sell, they take deposits, and then they build. In New York, you're taking a construction loan and then a mezz loan or equity, whatever, and you're building a building that hasn't been sold yet, and you can't use deposits in the capital stack. That's like a whole new level of risk.
Interesting.
Right? So Florida was the only place where you could use deposits in the capital stack like we do in Toronto. So it was the logical place to start was down there. There was a condo market and the deposits worked, which meant, risk in our view was lower, and off we went. And then that's where it grew into like purpose-built rental buildings, and that's where we, did multiple projects in Miami and then out to Fort Lauderdale. And then, we've got a couple of developments going on in Denver, another one in Atlanta, and another one in Nashville. And like, it was very organically happened where's the next logical place? We happen to know it, we understand it. And that's why we went down to South Florida. And frankly, I think that we got there, we started investing in 2015 or so in South Florida. And we always thought of it, the city of Miami, a lot like Toronto was like 10 or 12 years ago. A lot of stuff is going on, a lot of people, the city's changing. And now we're really seeing that the amount of people that are coming in, the amount of jobs, tech, finance, all the people that are moving down there, like we're seeing a real explosion of the growth there. And I think there's a long runway for that city down there.
Right. Are you guys involved with that? What's that massive project? It was nonstop in the news in Miami. Are you guys?
Oh, the Waldorf Astoria?
Yeah. Is that you?
Yeah. We're partners with PMG, the Waldorf. We figured if you're going to build a condo in Miami, it may as well be 100 stories. So it's
or else what are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, it can't go down there to build 6 stories. It's a full 3-hour flight. But it's actually the tallest building south of Manhattan. When we bought it, Waldorf wasn't associated. We bought it. We thought we're gonna make a real design, build a really tall building, and then kind of the market was slow for a little bit. And us and our partner thought, I think it would make sense to bring in a brand. And then we did this amazing thing where we went and met all the brands. We met the Four Seasons, and we met Waldorf, and we met Mandarin, and we met Rosewood, and we went around the country and and saw different, not just the country, like the world really. We went to the opening of the Bangkok Waldorf, which that's a good story that I can tell offline. We were there for 36 hours, not a horrible time. And then we went to Amsterdam and checked it out. And we met all these operators. At the end of the day, we settled on Waldorf. It's like the oldest 5-star brand in the world. It's got a global following, and we just got really excited. And it's owned by Hilton, which many people don't even know that Waldorf is owned by the parent company, Hilton. So having like a giant public company that's also your partner is not the worst thing, right? So we launched sales. We have an in-house sales team, and we partnered with the Eklund Gomes team, which I don't know if some of you guys ever seen $1 Million Listing New York or LA, but Frederick Eklund is one of the co-listing brokers on it, and it's been great. We've been working on it and plowing through a lot of units and sales, so we're excited. We're hoping to break ground Q1 of next year.
That's amazing.
So on that topic, because given the fact that building itself is a bit ultra luxury, I would say, you also have another project that's currently in Toronto, 138 Yorkville. What is your vision of creating these types of, I guess it's not even just upper class, it's more of like elite class condominiums, like one step even higher?
Yeah, I mean,
sorry to interrupt, Peter. For those who don't know, what were you? It's how many stories and how many total units?
So the Waldorf is 100 stories. Our actually residences start on floor like 41, because the first bit of it is the hotel and other amenity areas. And we kind of like to joke that our residential starts where pretty much every other building in Miami ends, and it goes all the way up through 100. And if you're afraid of heights, it's for sure not for you. But if you want to see, Puerto Rico and Cuba and Bahamas and half of Florida, it's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome.
That's amazing. So I always make the joke on here. Okay, go to Greybrook.com/CRELIBRARY and get a discounted condo or something like that. Yeah. We need to actually set that up.
That's right.
But what I wanted to know was the Yorkville one that Garrett mentioned. I think that has some pretty interesting statistics for total floors versus the total units too, right? Shows how kind of luxury they are.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like we do a broad range of things, right? Like it's kind of like our portfolio diversification. The person who's going to buy a $10 or $15 million condo in Yorkville is not the person who's buying a townhouse in Shelburne, Ontario, or in Fergus, or in Cambridge, or we have estate homes that we're partnered with Treasure Hill in Kleinburg that are $3, $4, $5 million houses, right? So you can have diversification in a geography amongst product type, duration, and all that stuff. So 138 Yorkville, which is a project we've been involved with a long time, technically it's 29 or 30 stories, but it's 70 units, right? Probably somewhere between 60 and 70 units. And I think there's a lot of people, and it's not to talk bad about other projects or even good about other projects. We think that it's hard to deliver a luxury building in Toronto. It's not easy. Planning takes many years. People have to plan for it from the beginning. You have to have the right area, floor plates, ability to do so, services. Like, it's hard to have all the ingredients. And we just thought that the one property that we have at the corner of Yorkville and Avenue Road allowed for all this stuff to be put together. So our ceiling heights, like, the up until floor 25, our slab to slab ceiling heights are 12.5 feet, which means that we can have 11-foot clear ceilings with no bulkheads in the entire unit, and then vaulting up to 12 or 12.5. The top 4 floors are 14.5 foot ceiling, slab to slab. So you can have 13 and 14 foot clear ceilings. Outdoor spaces, we have 2, 4, and 4 meter trees built into our terraces that have outdoor summer kitchens. When you're walking in from the inside of the building to the outside of your terrace, it's like a flat surface. There's no ledge to step over.
Nice.
The smallest unit right now is designed to be about, I think it was 2,400 square feet is the smallest unit in the building, not just private elevators and services. So these are things that obviously having a Yorkville address helps, right? And having a building that's boutique enough to be luxury, but big enough to provide the services where your maintenance fees aren't, egregious relative to market. Like, it's hard. We have a lot of properties in Yorkville. We own the corner of Yonge and Schollard, one Schollard in partnership with Citizen. And that's not the same building as 138 Yorkville. We own 101 Yorkville that we're redeveloping with First Capital. We own the northwest corner of Avenue in Davenport and another luxury building in Davenport and Bedford. Like you can't do all these things at certain points with every building. And if you find the right building and you think far enough ahead in terms of what you're planning and what you're doing and parking ratios, we're designing an underground parking garage that has private car vaults. Why do you need a car vault? Because people who have very expensive cars, turns out you can't get insurance that you want for that car in a regular open parking garage. So it's got to be climate controlled and it's got to have heat sensors and all these different things. So if you want to put the whole offering, you need to pay to do all that, but it's got to do it in the right area, because the price that we're going to ask is going to be, somewhere around $3,500 a foot. And people think, oh my God, you're crazy. You're just trying to make if I'm delivering this product, that's what it costs to make it and to deliver it is at a different level that no one's ever seen. So if you're going to do it, you got to do it at the right place. And we think us and our partner in First Capital there, I think we're going to deliver something that's really exciting. And, condos probably are going to start somewhere north of $6 million or $7 million. So, there's not a studio on the third floor that you can buy at 400 square feet, right?
That's amazing.
Yeah. And I'm super, I don't want to say too much, but I'm super excited about our penthouse there. Some of the features that thing's going to have, this will be the most expensive, penthouse ever sold in Canada for sure. It's unreal, from cantilevered pools and outdoor terraces and, multi-thousand square foot glass party rooms on the roof. It's you know what? I think, Garrett, you should look into, maybe it's something that you should look into. It could be perfect for you.
Oh yeah, perfect. Just let me get my checkbook out. I can just write it in cash.
I like to think about the celebrities who might call a Greybrook office and the person's like, oh yeah, Drake's on the phone again. He's trying to get the unit, but the weekend's not giving it up or whatever. That's really.
We're excited. We're super excited about it.
Yeah. This might be too broad a question now, because it sounds like you have a bunch of maybe different buckets of capital and you guys are incredibly diversified, but is there a set of criteria that you use to make that invest, not invest decision? And what might those be?
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard, because buying a piece of property that is in Curtis, Ontario, that is 5 years away from draft plan approval, and then buying, I use our property at Yonge and Schollard, it's under an 8,000 square foot floor plate where we're building, and we're approved now for 43 stories.
Wow.
It's a world of difference. The differences in what you're looking for and underwriting and what your risks are and time and all those things. So it's really hard to put it in a broad question, but I kind of distill it down to something very simply. We like to consider ourselves as what I call sunset buyers. When I buy something, I want to feel like I bought something and I made money before the sunset that day. So I want to make sure that we're buying something of it, whatever it is. When we're buying a piece of land, at the heart of it, there's value in our buy. And that could mean different things to different people, but that's just kind of a very general way of sitting there saying, we are buyers of land at the very root of what we do. Yes, we're a part of a manufacturing process, but you have to buy that land. You have to buy it at the right price with the right capital stack. Over leveraging something creates other issues, right? And making sure you have the right kind of capital buying it. So it really all goes back to the super rudimentary, boring thing of did you buy the land? Did you buy it for a good price? And how much, if any, debt do you have on it? And then it goes to execution partners and balance sheet and timeline and zoning risk. I mean, it's so funny. We didn't know how hard the space was when we started. It was blissful ignorance. It was oh, why would you buy a finished building with tenants that you could easily underwrite when you can buy a raw piece of dirt with 10,000 moving inputs, right? We just started there. It wasn't by design. It was just where we happened to start. And now it's wow, it's way easier when it's already there and built and tenanted to underwrite and think through the differences. So we just kind of got a lot of experience in thinking through a vision for a project, from zoning and cost. And frankly, it's a very, specifically in Southern Ontario, there's such it's a barrier to entry for people. How hard it is to buy a piece of dirt and get something approved anywhere? In different places, we buy something in Atlanta, it's pre-zoned. I don't have to worry. It's not, we literally bought a piece of property in Denver, and there was a process where someone tried to designate it as heritage. And anyways, we went to city council, and it was unanimously voted that it wasn't heritage, and we got a demolition permit issued the next day. If I applied for a demo, like literally, like the council meeting finished at 2 a.m. Toronto time, so like midnight Denver time, and I wake up the next morning, and like within 3 hours, the thing's in my inbox. Like for that, like
Yeah,
it's different barriers to entry here and development. Like someone just can't come in and be a developer here. It's hard, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. There would be protesters out front of the building the next morning in Toronto.
Yeah,
Wow.
they had like foreign. They were like, we can't designate it heritage. The property owner doesn't want it to, and they have rights, and we should protect their rights. And I'm like, can you all move to Toronto? Like, are you available to come in and have some of those? None of that matters. It's it's a different range here. So we've gotten used to working in here, and frankly, I probably wouldn't change. It'd be great if the planning process was a little more detailed and the timeline was a little more linear. But somebody asked me one time at the Land and Dev conference, like, what would you change? And I'm like, are you asking me as Peter, the principal and owner of a private equity real estate firm, or like Peter, the Torontonian human? Because as a Torontonian human, there's lots of things I'd want to change to give people houses and do the right things. As someone, as a business owner in the space that I'm in, it's okay to be hard. It allows us to be profitable, right?
Right.
Does that make me a bad person? Like, I don't know.
No, it makes sense, and you can hold both those opinions as well. So, yeah. So, and sorry, Garrett, go ahead.
I was gonna just switch gears slightly, moving back to Miami, specifically with your Society project, Society Wynwood. I believe that has a co-living element to it. So I wanted to ask sort of what your thoughts are on co-living as sort of a potential branch out of apartments in the future.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys asked, because I think there's like a general thought that people understand what co-living is. Co-living is like, I'm building a co-living apartment, and it's some version of living in like a dorm with super small suites, and everyone's jammed in there, and it's either cheap and cheerful. And it's not people do it for cost, but it's not the living experience. And it's like everyone wants to get out of there as fast as possible. Like that's mostly what these like jam co-living buildings have been. We see it as something totally different. Typically, like 20 to 35% of our building is like rent by bedroom. But we have, the rest of the building is traditional junior ones, 1, 2, 3 studio, whatever, moving on. And that's because all we're allowed to do, and it's easier to do in the US particularly than it is here, is we create these heavily amenitized buildings. Like we have a building in Wynwood, like you said, or in Las Olas that's now leasing. And that building in Toronto would probably have 7,000 or 8,000 square feet of amenity space, like general same size. We have 70,000 square feet of amenity space. Wow. So we have these big spaces, and people want to stay in the building because we're doing like curated living. We have whiskey tasting and cooking classes, and we have gyms that are larger than Equinox program living. It's all technology based. We don't have keys in any of our buildings. Everyone's opening up with an RFID bracelet or their phone or whatever. You guys come visit me in my unit. I'm going to send you a key to my place in the whole building for a week. You go away for a week, it's gone. There's
Wow.
food and beverage. There's like, I joke around that if I was like 21 and I moved in there, I'd be like, I'm 38 now. I'd be 38 years old and still living there, and would have made nothing of myself and would have been the happiest person in the world possibly. So like, it's not these like dorm rooms with these small, cheap, like, it's like, how do I get luxury apartment feel and amenities, and how do I stay in the building and be part of a community? And everyone has their own bathroom, and we clean their living spaces as part of the program. Internet's included, all these stuff is included, and it becomes like a curated living experience that I can either rent by bedroom and sit in like the main parts of a city, but for the lowest total dollars. But as a developer, because the spaces are smaller but well designed, and you can live both in and outside of your unit, your per square foot rent goes up, so your margins are better, and you can offer a good living experience with all these things, as you have higher total dollar rents for the building that you can give people a lifestyle for it. So, and we have roommate matching services, and like we joke around that we'll move you once, we'll move you twice. If it's the third time, maybe it's you and not everybody else, and it's just not for you. We haven't had a lot of those issues, and at the end of the day, like we kind of had a joke when we started. that kind of became like an internal tagline that we cure loneliness. Like if you sit there and you're moving around from city to city and you don't know people, or you're coming into a new place or a new job or new parts of your life, like we thought it was going to be like younger millennial people. The people that live there is like such a broad range of stuff, because you can live there renting a 3-bedroom, you can live there renting a bedroom, you can sit there with a significant other. We got people who move up in the building together, they get a new job or a better job or a raise. Like there's all these things that it becomes a community. And then we have societies in South Florida, and we have societies in Denver and Atlanta and other places, and we have people moving from place to place saying, I want to live in this kind of curated lifestyle. So we think of co-living as totally different than, how do I make these small, cheap, rent, by bedroom stuff, and try to make it a place where you'd want to go. We have such open areas. We have like charity events, Battle of the Bands contest that we have there. Like when I go there, I have a place in South Florida. When I go there, like I want to go hang out at the building. I bring my wife. I'm like, there's a charity event going on. We have movie nights and like by the pool deck. Like it's like this whole experience that we live in, and we think it's for a bang for your buck. No one can get in cheaper in terms of total dollars, because rent by bedroom total dollars is the cheapest. But you're not sitting there being treated as an inferior renter by getting a worse product. You're getting the great product. You might have a smaller space, or you might stay in the building and eventually have a bigger space.
And you're saying that the bottom line is better, even with the increased amount of amenity space? Like obviously the per bedroom amount is probably higher, but then you have 10 times the amenity room.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the U.S. they typically have a little bit bigger amenities, but our amenities are 50 to 80, 50, 80, 100% bigger than normal. But it's how you design the amenity space. Like where is it, and how does it flow, and where it goes. So if I'm renting by the bedroom, if a market rent is $3.50 a square foot, I can get $4 and $4.50 and $5 a square foot for a rent by bedroom, right? Mm-hmm. So when you look at my blended costs, it really doesn't cost as a percentage of NOI any different than a regular building. I might have a higher per square foot rent, but empirically our buildings have leased faster, because where else can you go for $1,300 and get your own place and your own bathroom and live in a beautiful building? Like the answer is there is no other option unless you want to go to a different part of the city or a much older product or somewhere away. So we offer a product that's not out there. It draws a lot of people, and the building itself ends up having like a community and a vibe and a personality, and people talk, and our retention rates show it. Our ability to drive rents show it. And when we started, it was hard. Like telling a bank, we're going to do co-living. It was a construction loan. They were like, oh, you're one of those. No.
I thought we could trust you, Peter.
Yeah, I'm like, did I grow another head? Like, I don't know. Why are you looking at me like that? And obviously it helps when the whole building's not co-living. But now that we've proved out the concept in many different locations, like I think we're really excited, and I really think that it's something that is filling such a big gap. Like in the US, so much of what is built is like large format units, large 1-bedrooms, large 2-bedrooms, large 3. Okay, great. But as rent inflates, who do you think can afford $5,000 a month? Like how much of the population do you think can afford $5,000 a month, $3,000 a month, even $2,500 a month in some cases? And then where does that go 5 years from now? And how do you drive your rents, and how do you grow you're running out of people, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's been our focus is smaller. We take like the Toronto, people don't realize how advanced Toronto is in condo design. Like the ability for us in 640 square feet to do like 2-bedroom, 2-bath, wide, shallow units that are very livable. Like we have 1,000 square foot 1-bedrooms in Atlanta, right? I remember we did a development in 2007, and our architects and our development partners designed a unit that was 780 square feet, 2 bedrooms, 2 baths. And we're like, we are the smartest people in the world. We got 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms and 780 square feet. We are the smartest people in the world. And we take those efficiencies, and we actually have lines in our buildings that our US partner called Property Markets Group call the Toronto 2s. Basically, there's like these intelligent designed 2-bedroom units that we either rent as 2-bedroom or rent by bedroom as well. And really it's driving bottom line, because I can get the same total dollars for smaller spaces, and people are willing to pay it.
Wow. Do you see any opportunity for co-living in the GTA?
Everyone always asks me that, and I think like the traditional like there are people doing the traditional co-living that's not like a dorm, but like a little less focused on luxury. Land is so expensive, and we have so many restrictive building policies that it's so hard for someone to make sense of 50,000 square feet of amenity space when you can only have 70,000, and you can't get any more density, and it's so expensive, and build form is so complicated and all that stuff, where I'm not saying that it's impossible for people to do, but if we wanted, I don't think that we can deliver the same living experience for the same value that over the long term people are going to really love. Like there's a place in the market for cheap, smaller co-living stuff because people just need cheap living. Like that's just not what we've built today, and it's not something that I think the society brand is not something that we can replicate down there up here because of those reasons. Could it work up here? It already does. People need it, like affordable housing. Like it's not something that we've done yet, but you know, they need it. Like we're going there, with or without us wanting to.
With us not being able to replicate that, it does sound like the ideal place to live, right? It sounds like you might never leave the building. Not like for years, you know, you want to party, you're going down to the kitchen, well, especially in these times, right?
Yeah.
True.
But so Peter, if we can't have society up here, what sort of big changes do you think we will see in Canada? And we'll expand outside the GTA, but in Canada over the next 5 years.
I mean, it's interesting because a lot of Canada is driven by like three markets, right? Like you have like Vancouver and the Greater Vancouver area, you have Montreal, and you have Toronto. Like they're all kind of their own living, breathing organisms. When someone talks about Canada's national housing price average, like it's almost like irrelevant. It's like saying like the average weight of a human. Like I don't even know what that means. Like I don't know what it not like.
Right.
Doesn't like are you 9 feet tall? Are you 3 feet tall? Are you 8? Are you like whatever? Right? So that to me is like such a tough thing to say in Canada. I mean, I think every market is going through like their own different things right now. Like Montreal, we're in there in the value add space, and people are seeing so much relative affordability in real estate in Montreal that money that was coming into Canada that was going predominantly in Toronto and in Vancouver, more so than ever, is going into Montreal because of the value. You're seeing a whole bunch of institutional players that never would play in that space that are now going to like Montreal as an example. In Vancouver, there's not a lot of land to develop. They're having different supply issues, shortages for developing new houses, but their population growth isn't as much, and more money that's gone there has been kind of parking money rather than like, let's say Toronto, where you have 100 to 120,000 people coming in every day. They actually physically have to live somewhere, and there's not a lot of places for people to live. So Canada is like a little bit of a different segment in every one of these places. Like look at, Alberta, the market's strong there right now. And like 2 years ago, someone thought, Alberta is going to be a ghost town. No one's ever going to go to Alberta again, right? So there's all these different things that are happening. And in Toronto, the inclusionary zoning that's coming in, whether, it right now is scheduled for January 1 of this year, is like, I think it's a game changer for condos. And it's not going to make it cheaper. It's kind of make it more expensive. It's going to make projects less financially profitable. I don't think landowners are just going to say, sure, pay me less. They did it in 2017 when the low-rise market went down 20%. So like, I don't know where, like, you want to keep taxing the golden goose in development. I get it. Okay, but at some point, you're like, literally, if you set out to try to make housing more expensive, I'm going to create policy for the next 10 years, housing will be more expensive. You could have orchestrated what the city did, right? And not with bad intentions. There's things that policymakers and city don't necessarily always understand the cause and effect, and they don't always understand who to believe or who to talk to about what's real and what's not in that case, right? It's a complicated problem to solve, and there's no light. Fixed it, turn the switch on. We're good. It's complicated.
Right. I think, by the way, for our audience who might not know, we're seeing a similar trend here. We filmed an episode with Center Court with Andrew Hoffman and Bader El Khatib. They were not a fan of inclusionary zoning either. But for our audience who might not know, so inclusionary zoning, the City of Toronto proposed, it seemed initially like something that could provide a little bit more certainty on what your future development is going to look like, right? So that is that kind of, am I going down the right?
Inclusionary zoning is basically the city will force every condominium development within certain parameters of transit, other things, to do somewhere between 3 and upwards of 20% affordable housing.
Right.
And you have no ability to appeal that to LPAT or other bodies. So like they're just going to tell you what it is.
Yeah.
And that's complicated.
Yeah. And again, it's something that initially came out with probably good intentions, but is just going to result in higher prices for the end consumer.
Or a lack of supply. Altus came out with something, and it was like good in its simplicity because it got the point across, which was like, okay, at 5% affordable housing, a regular pro forma goes from here to here, and at 10%, it's no longer profitable, and at 20%, it's like even less profitable.
Oh my God.
Well,
Nobody's
who's
going
gonna
to build anything then.
No one's gonna build. So like, if I have to be able to pay for the cost of affordable housing. So I'm just gonna have to charge more, or I can't even build it if I wanted to, unless I'm just in the hobby of losing tens or hundreds of millions of dollars building stuff, because that sounds like fun, but it's a lot of work to just sit there and lose money all the time. So it's just, I don't know where it goes, right? And it's complicated.
In terms of practicality, so January 1, this takes effect. If you own land or if you are a developer, what are you doing right now to ensure you're less affected by that?
Listen, a couple things. If you get your application in by before Jan 1, 2022, your grandfather. I can tell you, I'm speaking to some landowners, and I'm like, guys, I know you're talking to me because I want to buy your property. Don't sell me your property. Sell your property to somebody, because literally it's impossible for someone to pay you the same amount of money on January 1 that it is now. In fact, it's not even Jan 1. So they got to get their application in by Jan 1. You better sell it now. This is like a broker, like public service announcement. Sell your land now if you want to get maximum value, because I don't even know if we can buy, like we're trying to buy 4 or 5 other condo sites this year to get our application and be whatever. Right. I don't know how Jan 1, I pick my head up from my pillow after, on New Year's Day. How do I buy a condo property right now? I don't actually know how we can underwrite it. If we assume worst case scenario, someone's gonna have to start giving me their land. Just take it. You can have it. Okay, thanks. Okay, now maybe it works. It's complicated. So I don't think we're buyers. As somebody who buys $500 to $800 million of development land in the GTA a year, I don't actually know how we buy condo land under the current rules. And maybe there'll be more guidance and more nuances that we understand, make it more palatable. As it is today, I don't know how I buy something that I can't have an application before the end of the year.
You're gonna hear all the brokers here. You heard it here. Now is the time. You have to sell.
But it actually is.
Yeah.
This is not a drill. This is an actual emergency. It's not a test of the emergency broadcast system.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you go, and capital gains is going to increase. And they're like, that's too much now. Now that's too much.
Yeah. Just take my land. Just take it. I don't even want it anymore. You're gonna have it.
I guess this is a project that you are particularly interested in and have a lot of passion for, but I want to ask you about sort of Delos Living and sort of that wellness certification. Sort of what is that, and how are you guys involved?
Yeah, I mean, I think Delos Living is essentially, you can think about it kind of like LEED certification in the sense of like that are environmentally friendly buildings, but these are well certification for buildings. It involves clean air, lighting, water, other things that go into a building. I mean, it's obviously so top of mind with what's going on with COVID across the world, but thinking about how we can live in healthier buildings is something that we think is really important. And I think given where we're at now in the world going forward, it's something that everyone, I think, is going to want to ask about. I think it's going to be important in offices. I think it's going to be important in buildings. I think it's going to be important in residences, condos. Like, people ask questions now, like, whose air am I breathing, right? What am I doing? Where's this water coming from? How is all this affected? And Delos is a U.S. company that we've made an investment in, and we're their partner across all of Canada. We're their exclusive partner but for us, it's the next evolution of what people should expect out of where they live and where they work. And recently, Scotiabank announced that they're well certifying Scotiabank Arena. So that goes with air filtration and lights and water. Different.
Yeah.
Yankee Stadium is doing it. Like all these different things. And I don't. There's a bunch in Toronto, like huge organizations that you guys would know. I don't know if I'm allowed to say them or not yet, so I'm not going to put my foot in my mouth because my partner Sasha has been leading the Daedalus initiative with Brendan Crombie, our president there. So I want to be careful with what I say, but what we're doing here is effectively creating a standard for why we think we should be living and working in these healthy buildings. And it's a certification that we're working with from retailers to offices to residential people. And I think it's something that we're really passionate about. And I think it's important to create that standard for everybody to exist in.
Wow.
Yeah, and especially relevant in today's current environment.
Who's in my breathing? I've never asked that question actually, but maybe now.
Well, it's interesting now, right? Like, and that's the kind of things that when people are building new offices or building new, or we're selling something in the Waldorf or selling something at 138, or even in regular places, to know that there's air purification and there's different things. And this is not us creating the standard. Like, Daedalus has a partnership with the Cleveland and Mayo Clinic, like the international standard around the world. I wish I could tell you that Peter in his laboratory with Sasha and Elias right, made this up. Like, that's just not what it is. It's we're bringing this to the forefront, and now that people hear it, you'll be surprised how many times you see the well-certified sticker and logo, and you're going to hear it more and more around, because I think it's the next wave of what people expect out of their living environments and working environments.
Excellent. Last two questions. These you can give very short answers for, even maybe a 2-word answer. Where is a new area where you see a lot of growth in terms of geography in Canada?
We have been investing, even not that we haven't for a long time, but heavier in what I'll call periphery GTA markets: Shelburne, Erin, Caledonia, Fergus, other places. Like, there are some subset of people that want houses and don't want to live in high density, and they can't spend unattainable price here wherever it is. And that is somewhere that we've seen these communities where people are moving out of Brampton, they're moving out of Mississauga, they're moving out of, and they're moving out to these more periphery areas. The amount of money they have to spend and what they consider expensive, what those areas previously were, there's a lot of upside opportunity. I mean, we bought a property in Shelburne with Fieldgate. When we bought it 4 years ago, people kept asking me where Shelburne was. And we said, you can sell a 40-foot detached house there, and our pro forma for $600,000. And now we're selling 36-foot, units for $1.1 or $1.2 million, right? Because for $1.1 million in Richmond Hill, you can get 84% of my townhouse, right? It's just functional. So I think in Canada, that's something that we're focusing on. Whether it's Peterborough and like, there's opportunities out there, and like the more periphery markets than people generally think are the sexiest places to invest.
Okay. And then Garrett, why don't you ask the last question, the $1 million question?
Yeah. So if you personally, this is you as the human, not as the private equity fund president, personally had $1 million in cash, where would you invest it?
Sure. I can tell you where I do invest it. It's really in land at the end of the day, right? Like, I believe that owning land, and whether it's for development, for other stuff, or through our structures, I just think that there's a lot of ability to generate long-term value. I think it's probably one of the only, and I can probably think of one or two other ones, but it's one of the only assets in the world that has real value, that's not traded on a mark-to-market exchange. They trade everything on exchanges: currency, stocks, Dogecoin, whatever Dogecoin is, right? Like, commodities, pork bellies, orange juice, lumber. Forget lumber. You can do like a whole hour on just lumber prices going up. Like, it makes Dogecoin look like a tanking stock, right? So at the end of the day, when you have a real finite asset like that, and it can be farmland, it can be development land. Like, we've seen greenbelt land trading for over $100,000 an acre. I don't know what they're doing with it, but there's different things. So, like, to me, and maybe it's like the good old Greek, son of Greek immigrants in me, where, you can either have a restaurant or a parking lot, and I can't cook, so I buy land. I mean, that's just really the functional reality of where I put the money.
Awesome.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us, Peter.
My pleasure, guys. It was a lot of fun. We should do it again sometime soon.
I'm sure we will. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Peter.